Good morning, everybody. My name is Dr. Patrick Flynn, and welcome to this morning's A Different Perspective. I am so excited that you guys are here with me on this beautiful July 2nd, 4th of July weekend. I hope you guys are having a safe and wonderful holiday. Love the 4th of July. As a guy, you know, and all that testosterone that we do have, we love blowing stuff up. So it's always a lot of fun. And all of us guys in the studio today are just all pumped up because we get to see all things explode like crazy. It's just something that we love. So I hope you guys have a very safe and amazing holiday. It's been an absolutely fantastic week for the things that have happened here. We've got so much stuff to share with you. But before we do, I'm excited to tell you that there's a little changes to the show that will consistently be happening. But even today, we're going to test some things that work out pretty well because, once again, behind the scenes, there's so much things that happen with all these wonderful people, from the media team to our graphics team and our wonderful video team, as we put together a little video here as we're going to show you how to subscribe to our website here. You can scroll down all the way, click in there, and actually subscribe to our newsletter, because that's how people stay the most connected with us that way. Because what they do is there's constant information, as you can see, given there. And even like this recent article you can see in Limesies. But it's nice that our video team put together a little video there to show you guys how to go to our website, subscribe. It's absolutely incredible. You want to do that, and our website, it gets so many hits per month. I'm always blown away and very thankful every single month when the media team comes to me and says, oh my goodness, look at our stats for this month. June was absolutely psychotic. I'm excited about that, but recently I had something really neat happen this week. All of a sudden I was walking outside because it's a little warmer here, so I actually do my phone calls, have my headset on. I was outside and in the sun as I'm doing my phone call, and all of a sudden this woman is like, oh, Dr. Patrick. And she's like, I watched you in Sarasota, Florida. And when I was down at the hormone seminar, it was kind of great because the neat thing is this: she's been watching our material like crazy. She saw our hormone talk. She ended up coming up here. She wanted to stop by the corporate office, and it's kind of neat. And she's like, the information that you guys have on your website, I just had to stop by and see the corporate office. And that's the nice thing about our website. It continues to grow. It continues to share with people all over the world. And she's like, I watched the show on the website every single weekend. So thank you. I appreciate that massively. So as you can see, our wonderful video team put together that nice little how to do it that way. So if you are not on our website, go there, subscribe, because I'm not joking. I was actually just even reviewing it this morning. Our amazing newsletter. It's kind of crazy how much great stuff. And if you ever are by the corporate office, stop by. I'd love to see you, hang out for a couple minutes, have a little coffee. But it's kind of neat, and you get to meet some of our amazing people, our video team and our investigative journalists. And once again, that's when I look at these articles, I just sit there and smile all the time because I page through them. I'm not joking. I was actually laughing this morning. Brandon, I kind of laughing this morning going, I didn't realize our newsletter was that long. Oh, yeah. There's so much information on there. I'm like going, man, our team's amazing. I was like, so kudos to all you guys. I mean, it's just amazing stuff on there. I'm just blown away with what this team does on a daily basis. That being said, as you guys consistently send emails like crazy, people are saying, Doc, could you add a QR code to your website? I'm so technologically, I say, we can say it right, technologically deficient. People think I'm like a massive technology person. It's not true. I just have a team is. So as you can see on the screen down below, because people are like, Doc, since you do have a website and do have a media team, can you get people to put up a QR code? It makes things so much easier for us. And I'm like, I walked over to my team. I said, what's a QR code? And they're like, I'm like, how do you get that thing? He's like, and I didn't realize this. I didn't know this. You take your camera and you put it on the I'm like, how do you take your camera and put it on the QR code and stuff like that? I'm not joking, guys. It's not a joke. My daughters know this stuff already, but that's what it is. So as you can see there, that'll flash on and off every once in a while and stuff on there. So the QR code for the stuff that brings you direct there, because a person's like, I didn't realize that. Convenience people kind of like that. So, but also, as you guys know that we always have somebody answering questions during the live session here, because it's live. We are sitting in studio. It's what, 8:05. It's kind of great. So we always have one of our intern doctors, and we actually have more ASMR. So there's Patrick. Everybody wave to Patrick here. He's going to be responding to all the questions and stuff like that. He's been here interning. He'll eventually go practice in one of our wonderful offices. And it's great to have the guys like this on a constant basis answering things. So we'll dialogue with you on a regular basis and have you guys here to see all this stuff. So that being said, something kind of neat happened recently. As you can see, we actually started a new official Dr. Patrick Flynn page that you can go, which next week we'll start going live on also. But our current page, once again, you can see we're up on the Wellness Way Facebook page. We also have a YouTube page. We have all the factors that are coming in that we're getting back on media a little bit more. But we do have an official Dr. Patrick Flynn page you can see on the left. We'll broadcast from there next week. Just let you guys know, Facebook has rejected our request again to have our biggest page turned back on because supposedly I keep violating the rules. They wouldn't let me back on. That's okay, I get it. But all of our stuff that violates the rules is on the website at www.thewellnessway.com on there. And I always tell people, I still love and I obsess with this slide here. I just absolutely love this slide. It's amazing how a different perspective, looking at things from a different angle, seeing it from, like I said, a bird's eye view instead of up so close. There's an old saying, I don't know whoever created it, but it's a good one. You know, you're so close to the trees you can't see the forest. And I always tell people, it's like, man, I know people argue constantly about points, circle, square, circle, square. I'm taking up a viewpoint and going, well, my perspective is it's just a cylinder against a wall on two different walls. And therefore, it's all about perspective, guys. So that allows us to actually have shows like this and give this. But remember, the one thing about our perspective is we have a perspective, and it's not just about a show. It's also about clinical application. The greatest thing right now, if you go to our website and say find a clinic, you'll see clinics from all over the world. It's great. Actually, this month, I was going to say next month, in a couple weeks, I'm actually be traveling over to Ireland for a couple days because we are continuing to expand our operations not only here in the US, but also in Europe. So we'll have some European offices. And yes, I know, I never realized, does anybody know the second country I have the most following in is? Australia. And I kid you not, once their political stuff kind of calms down a little bit from some of the stuff from the last couple of years, I definitely am going to end up having an office there eventually because it's such a great place that I want to go and visit on a regular basis. So it's kind of exciting to see those kind of things. So that being said, we will continue to do this with our perspective all over, which allows me to, as you can see, I just had a wonderful time. You can go see on CHD TV with Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s, this is his whole network there. I was interviewed for the documentary that they have out on fertility. So they got my perspective on it with the immune stuff and all the factors and hormones. But you can watch the full interview. They're going to use clips of it for promotions of the movie and things like that. So definitely go and watch that. It's going to be incredible. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Andrew Wakefield put it together. And it's kind of nice to actually have a different perspective that allows doors and opportunities to open to see this. And I believe that we have a very different perspective on fertility. And once again, kind of wrapping that around is it's an idea, but then it's applied clinically. See, the show is nothing more than my chance to communicate with you guys on a regular basis and give you a little bit of a long format of teachings. And then our amazing video team and media team and our investigative journalists put all the things together and put them in word form, put them in video form to clip out to give you guys some perspective that you can apply to your life. Now, that being said, we're going to continue our breast cancer series. And as you guys know, something that is very dear to me is when you guys send me emails. I actually try to read every email I possibly can. I know it's kind of funny. I do like comments in, Facebook chat or Instagram and stuff like that, but I actually am more addicted to emails. I think I'm still old school that way. I still like having the emails up there. It's funny, I was chatting with somebody this morning and going, oh my goodness, I just realized they're like, summer is going by so fast. And I'm like going, you're right, it is. At the end of summer, I'll be 48 years old. But I think I get more energy and more driven the older I get. And the great thing is and I, like this morning, as I was prepping for the show and going stuff, I'll take a little break and I love to read emails. And some of the emails, once again, are downright disheartening. They really are, because people will reach out in a last-ditch effort for some help. And if that's you, send me an email. You can send it to askdrpatrick@thewellnessway.com. So AskDrPatrick, my first name, at thewellnessway.com. And Andrea, I'll eventually get to it, or one of my other docs or practitioners will reach out and answer your question. But some of the emails that come through are sometimes very disheartening, and I'm helping people sometimes, go through the mess of what they're going with. I always tell people, I love when people say this, and that young lady from Sarasota, Florida, she came up to me and she's like, oh my goodness, the corporate office is amazing. It's huge, it's expanding. And she goes, it's pretty exciting. And I looked at her, I said, thank you. I really appreciate those comments. I said, but you know what's really sad? I want you to think about this. My company's expanding because there's massive medical failures. I want you to think about that. If we had real healthcare, which is basically us, if that was this, the expansion, for example, wouldn't happen. But our current healthcare system actually leaves people very frustrated, very sick, no hope, and then they reach out to people like us. And the one thing is this, so when I get emails like this, it's very frustrating, but it's also understandably considering the perspective. So always remember that that's the key to everything. So let's look at the email, and then we're going to move into our perspective section. So here we go. Dr. Kirkpatrick, I found you on Instagram and have really enjoyed your content. You are direct, bold, and put things in a very simple manner for us to understand. That is why I am messaging you, and I understand if you cannot get to my question, but I recently went to my doctor, and I am confused about what she said, and I would like your perspective. I currently have PCOS and taken several medications for it. I am disappointed during my visits because as I ask about what can be done besides this, she tells me it's very common to get cancer of many kinds if you don't get these treatments. I ask more details, but she doesn't give me any perspective that I can follow, so I'm frustrated. Can you share your thoughts? Sincerely, a frustrated woman, Janet, now a fan. Okay? Well, thank you, Janet, for sending me that message. I actually understand your frustration. I can feel your frustration through your email, but I also understand your doctor's perspective. See, that's the great. When I say that I have a certain perspective, and the Wellness Way's idea and approach give you a certain perspective, I understand where they're coming from. And I'm going to relate to this because I know it's frustrating. And I sent this woman a message back and we dialogued a little bit. And it was interesting because she was extremely frustrated because, once again, she just wants to know, what can I do besides the medications? And she's dug a little deeper and she's been researching. And that's one thing that most people do, and that's why I love the internet. I know it's really funny because a lot of people say, don't let your Google search override my education. I'm going, I like the Google search. I do. It gives people a chance to be able to dig deep. And what happens is if you have a perspective you want to share and you want to get certain results, you should have no problem if a person researches and digs and stuff. I tell people this, when I tell you something, dig for it, really, because you're going to find out that the stuff I share with you actually does a wonderful job of leading you the right direction. So I love that if you actually, everything I do, research it, pick it apart, do stuff. When I post an article and I post a research article, do like I do. Like I share with you guys, I read journals every day, every single day, every day. Okay, it's something I absolutely love to do. And like I said, even as I was pulling out some research articles for today, I actually read, I think, 3 already this morning. And not just the abstracts, but even though sometimes I only share the abstracts with you because obviously it would be a 10-hour show if I did that. But so what we're going to do now in our breast cancer series, what I'm going to do now is seeing, listen, if you look at that woman's frustrations about, the doctor said, if you don't get these treatments, it's very common to get multiple forms of cancer because I have PCOS. Is that there? And once again, as I was dialoguing with her, she's like, the doctor said I have more prevalence for breast cancer if I do not take these treatments. And is the doctor right? Well, let's do this. As our wonderful team starts to set up our offices and our videos a little bit better, now we're going to move into our perspective and our Wellness Way approach. So we'll continue to have segments that we are going to share with you guys because they're so important to really distinct the things that are going on. And so what I want to do now is I want to talk about this. Is there a relationship between PCOS and breast cancer? Because as we've been doing a breast cancer series, there's multiple factors that do it. Is very common for women that suffer from PCOS to actually end up with breast cancer. If the women don't take some form of medication and treatment during their when they're going through PCOS, does it lead to more chances of breast cancer? Well, let's see what the research says when it comes to this. So they did a great meta-analysis study and said breast cancer risk in patients with PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome, Medellin randomized analysis. So let's see what it says. Here we go. If we look in detail, if you look at the abstract, here we go. The association between polycystic ovary syndrome and breast cancer remains inconclusive. Conventional observation studies are susceptible to inverse causality and potential confounders. With the meridian randomization approach, we aim to investigate the causal relationship between genetically predicted PCOS and breast cancer risks. Now, what I want to show you guys is this. So what they did in that statement right there, the reason why something is inconclusive, even though they actually can relate some factors to it, is that it's multifaceted. See, the one thing that I find so interesting is it doesn't matter what condition is. If you ever notice, most docs will take a linear approach. Okay, you got this, take this. I can honestly tell you this. That never happens. There's always multiple factors that lead to why somebody's sick. For example, if somebody has testosterone levels that are abnormal in the man, you will know that I will say, listen, you have to start with sugar. I don't say it's only sugar. You see? Now, are there some heavier factors that can lead to why testosterone is off? Absolutely. But there's never one thing. It's impossible. That's why I kind of find it funny when people say, I'm taking this drug for this condition. All right, I get it. They're trying to maybe address some factor that contributes to it, but there's only one thing. I'm sorry, if you know anything about the human body, that makes no clinical sense whatsoever, because there's nothing that just has a one causal factor. Now, I know there's extremists, so let me give you an example. Yes, let's say we do everything right, and all of a sudden I walk outside, and all of a sudden somebody hits me in the car. Well, guess what? One causal factor broke all my bones and led me to the hospital. I get it. I know there's examples, but the idea is this. When you look at chronic illness, so let's step there. Start with some chronic illness. It doesn't matter if it's heart disease, cancer, diabetes, PCOS, infertility, anything. Something that is chronically there, something that took some time to develop. There is no such thing as one causal factor. So as they start to actually look at these things and start to perpetuate these things put together, they realize that, guess what? As they talk about it being inconclusive, that's not really true, because if you go through the article in great detail and come to a conclusion, so let's go back to it. Our findings indicate, so let's go to conclusions, that PCOS will likely be a causal factor in the development of estrogen, so ER positive breast cancer, providing a better understanding to the etiology of breast cancer and the prevention of breast cancer. So once again, is there a relationship between PCOS and breast cancer? And they actually said, yes, there is. But it's related to, once again, if there's some estrogen receptor breast cancer. So right there, this should give you some insight, not only in breast cancer, but also PCOS. See, because what you'll find out in PCOS and why it's so, once again, multifaceted is because there can be levels of androgens as far as testosterone being a little bit high, androgen being a little high, DH being a little bit high, and then estrogen's really low. But look at this. If you have a form of PCOS that actually has some form of estrogens elevated, not only can that help develop and perpetuate PCOS, but also can contribute to what? Breast cancer. So now let's go back to that young lady who's frustrated because she has PCOS and they are managing her. And they said, listen, if you do not get this form of treatment, it's very common for people to have what? Breast cancer or other forms of cancer down the road. So I'm going to tell you the doctor's perspective. When he told you that, Janet, he actually was truthful to you. Now people say, wait, doc, you're telling me you agree with them? Whoa, whoa, whoa. I agree with their perspective. I agree with their clinical outcomes. I agree with the fact that if you stay under that form of care, they're going to do nothing to get things back to normal. So what's the end result? If you don't do their hormone disease management process, you're probably going to still end up sicker as time goes by, but you're going to end up with other forms of cancer and other things that they're predicting. It's like this. They always say if you have endometriosis, your chance of ovarian, endometrial, breast cancer are more common. Yes, if you continue with that perspective and that doctrine and that management, yes, that's true. If you go in a different direction, if you listen to a different perspective, the outcomes can be dramatically different. See, so Janet, your frustration is very warranted, but the doctor was being honest with you. He should really just say, listen, I don't know what to do with your hormones. I don't know what your PCOS came from. I'm just going to give you a standard form of care, which once again, one of the most standard form of care is metformin. And once again, I literally said to her, I said, let me guess, you're taking metformin. She goes, yes, how do you know? Well, it's standard. Got this, take this. But then what happened is other things perpetuated because PCOS is a multi-factor process. And then they start trying to manipulate other parts of the body. And once again, she's frustrated. She goes, because once again, this happened, it's not really getting better. So they throw another thing. And then the next thing you know, she's on multiple management processes and she's frustrated. But I understand why the doctor is doing it. Because you know why? Because on their perspective, they didn't sit back and say, Janet, there might be a hormonal component to your PCOS. Here's what we're going to do in order to start to reverse, restore, and get those things back to normal. No, it's like, okay, we need to manipulate these things. If we don't manipulate these things, your chances of cancer are much more down the road. True, that perspective. But I will tell you this beyond a shadow of a doubt. There's more than that perspective. We just dominate in that perspective, so people are very frustrated. So Janet, to reiterate, is your doctor what he said to you right? Yes, he did not lie to you. He did not. So the frustration isn't the fact that he lied to you or they're not giving you answers. You're actually asking that doctor to do something that they can't. I mean it sincerely. If you came to me and said, Doc, can you explain brain surgery, foot surgery? Could you tell me and could you perform it? I'd look at them and go, not my field. Now I know I'm being dramatic on that, but when you're asking an OB, a gynecologist, a general practitioner, to help you get things back to normal in any female realm, I'm sorry, with the exception of where you need a surgery or something like that, it's a bad day. Your outcomes are going to be just like everybody else. You're going to continue to get sicker, and they're going to try to manage you, and you're going to be just as frustrated as you were before. Now, so if we look, and this is really important to understand, there is a commonality of abnormal hormones with breast cancer and PCOS. That's important to understand. Both conditions have multiple factors that contribute to their development. Okay, those are just some quotes out for me I want you to understand. See, that's why when I look at a person and say, listen, is there a commonality between breast cancer and PCOS? Yes. Endometrial cancer? Yes. Any condition that can result from hormones being abnormal can result from it. So they are right. If you do have PCOS, they're going to make some assumption that you're going to have some form of hormonal condition. And therefore, it can result in any kind of hormonal disease down the road. So, but don't stay there. Because once again, the conditions have multiple factors that make them that way. So now, let's take another look at another journal. Here we go. Cancer risks and PCOS. What does it talk about? Here we go. Women with PCOS have a 2.7-fold increased risk for developing endometrial cancer. A major factor for this increased malignancy risk is prolonged exposure to endometrium to unopposed what? Look at that word right there. Unopposed estrogen. That results from anovulation. So I want you to think about this. So if you think about just even endometrial cancer itself, they say unopposed estrogen. That means the estrogen, certain ones can be elevated. That means you could have normal estrogens. Remember, there are hormones that do certain things, and there's all hormones that counteract the things. For example, most women understand this. Estrogens actually help develop and grow the body. That's why when a young lady hits puberty, guess what happens? There's a development. But then, once again, the estrogens maintain all those tissues that you develop as a woman. Now, to make sure that it doesn't get out of control, there's always a balancing hormone. And we all know that estrogens are balanced out by the progesterone. So when they talk about unopposed, once again, if they get elevated, or there's not a hormone to be able to keep it calmed down and keep it under control and maintain it, it will do what? It'll do its job. See, estrogen at a normal level, so all of your estrogens, so let's say all of your estrogens are right here, a normal level, full this cup. But then there's another cup that's supposed to actually have progesterone that keeps this cup from overflowing. You saying? Well, guess what happens? If progesterone gets low, this can go and do its job without any balance there. See, so when I love this, when it talks about when there's prolonged exposure. So let me say that again. Here's another key in there. Prolonged. Just because your estrogen levels or some hormone changes for a short time, your illness, once again, your chronic illness, anything you develop takes time to develop. Do you understand? If you end up with breast cancer and they find a lump, do you know many years that has taken to develop? It's an excessive amount of time. That's why people do not understand the fact that when all of a sudden they said, well, doc, we just found the breast cancer. We just found it. But do you understand how long it actually took to develop? So that's why when I look at going, once again, PCOS, it has a 2.7-fold increase risk of developing endometrial cancer. So when they talked about breast cancer, yes, but also talked about, once again, endometrial cancer and other cancers, yes. But the key thing is this. What's the component between even endometrial cancer and breast cancer? There's some hormonal problems. See, so that's why I sit there and go, so if we look and go, recent data suggests that the use of melatonin, no, metformin, that's kind of funny, may be protective. I'm going to get to melatonin in a short time. May be protective for both endometrial and breast cancers. So if you look down towards the bottom thing, there is insufficient data to evaluate an association between PCOS and vaginal, vulvar, or cervical cancer of uterine sarcomas. Now, but it's kind of funny. The reason why I threw metformin in there, because once again, I'd rather see the word melatonin in there than metformin. Now, the one thing that you can see when they're covering PCOS, one of the major factors to create some hormonal balance is actually they're going to try to lower the blood sugar. That's why if you look, there's a lot of insulin sensitivity that comes and insulin resistance that comes when they have these forms of cancer. That's why if you look, PCOS, metformin. Guys, what does metformin do? See, if you think of it this way, it helps you with your blood sugar levels. So just by random chance, if one of the most common medications, the primary medication that they give for PCOS that could lead to breast cancers, that could lead to endometrial cancer, is actually regulating your sugar. So we're all guys here, okay, sitting in the studio. We got Kyle and Kyle's dad here. We got Brandon. We got Travis over there. So we got all men in here. Now we are talking about more female-based conditions that way. But if you have a significant other, or you have a girlfriend, or you have a fiance and stuff, and you are concerned about future cancers and future things, problems, or PCOS for your wife or girlfriend or fiance, just from seeing this alone, and you go, okay, hormonal imbalances and some of the major conditions and future problems that way, and they're given metformin, which actually lowers blood sugar, what do you think that we should maybe have our women do to lessen their chance of getting those kind of cancers or those kind of problems? You're right. They're all mumbling it right now. Reduce your sugars. I mean, just some basic stuff. You know, it's like this. If you have type 2 diabetes, which is very common all over the world, here's what happens. Metformin, what does it do? It helps you regulate your blood sugar. Well, why don't we, instead of managing it internally, why don't we first start and reduce as many sugars as we can coming in internally that way? Novel idea, but it does work. All right, let's keep on going. Once again, another amazing article on here. Controversial association between polycystic ovarian syndrome and breast cancer. All right, it's kind of great. Let's look at the abstract really quick, and we'll continue on to the conclusion. Polycystic ovarian syndrome, PCOS, risk factors overlap with breast cancer. What's that overlap? And the hormonal profile, there we go, may be implicated in breast cancer pathogenesis. This study aims to report the literature review considering epidemiological and molecular mechanisms that correlate PCOS and breast cancer, as well as the influence of PCOS treatment on the incidence of breast cancer. Let's look at here, a part that I absolutely love, because when I was reading this research article, I saw this and I'm like, oh my goodness, I got to put this on there because it's the basis of hormones. It's the basis for all the stuff that I've been yelling at for 23 years, even though we've done a couple shows a little bit on this, but I want to show you this. Here's our conclusion. The review focuses on PCOS controversial association with breast cancer risk in several aspects, from epidemiological to molecular mechanism, and the influence of PCOS therapeutic approaches in breast cancer incidence. A clinical association between PCOS and breast cancer risk was reported in several studies, which had several limitations and consistently did not establish a clear association. Androgen influence in breast cancer seems to be mainly due to conversion to estrogens. Okay, I hope you caught that. The guys that sit in the studio and listen to me talk about this and preach about this all the time, it's plain as day. It's like, wait. The androgens, once again, those are the hormones that can be elevated. Could be testosterone, could be androstenedione, could it be DHT. Influence breast tissue seems to mainly due to, and here's the key word, conversions to estrogens. See, that's a big one. That actually not only has to do with breast cancer, that has to do with male stuff too. We talked about this, that if you look at the conversion process, that once again, hormones are produced, and that's why when they talk about and overproduction, which we're going to get to that. But guess what happens? It kind of doesn't make sense that we're talking about some of the things without understanding conversions. Because when a hormone is produced, it's got to convert from one form to another. If it doesn't convert, it's like a drain. If we have a tub that has 7 drain holes and 5 of them are plugged, would you agree with me that the tub will probably fill up faster than if all 7 drains are open? See, so therefore, because it's going to go down certain drains and they're going to convert and go to different areas. See, and that's what happens is like, it's not really an overproduction of hormone. It's just that they convert and now they're unopposed because they become imbalanced. So when I saw that, when you look at PCOS, when you look at breast cancer, when you look at all these major hormonal issues, you're going to find out one of the major factors that contribute to all these things is you can't convert from one form to another. So when I saw that, it's going to now lead into something that is related to what you guys are always asking for, and we're going to call that now our hot topics for our next segment. Hot topic of today, as you see, it's picked by you. So you guys, when you send an email to askdrpatrick@thewellnessway.com, I will always put a hot topic in there every week. So as Janet did, I wanted to cover PCOS a little bit more in detail and its relationship to breast cancer in our breast cancer series. So let's look at this. Let's look at what PCOS really is. I think it's important to really define that. And you're going to find out that all the major medical establishments have a little different viewpoints, but there's some commonalities as we can see that. So if we look at the aspect of PCOS, here's what it says. So we're going to take, as you can see down the right, what is it? And you can see I just took this from Mayo Clinic's website. So let's take a look. Let's read it together. Here we go. Polycystic ovarian syndrome, according to Mayo Clinic, is a hormonal disorder. Yes, I agree. Common among women of reproductive age. Common does not mean what, guys? Common does not mean normal. See, it's one of the most common instances of female conditions. I think it ranges from 12 to 25% of cyclic women suffer from this. Women with PCOS may have infrequent or prolonged menstrual periods or excess male hormone androgen levels. The ovaries may develop numerous small collections of fluids, follicles, and fail to regularly release eggs. The exact cause of PCOS is unknown. Early diagnosis and treatment along with weight loss may reduce the risk of long-term complications such as type 2 diabetes and heart disease. All right, the exact cause of PCOS is unknown. And I will tell you right now, you will never find the cause of PCOS. Let me make that very clear. As long as the perspective that they have, you'll never find the cause because there is no cause. There's causal factors. There's multiple factors. You're going to find out that, yes, hormone components are one of the major causal factors, but as I could show you, I'm going to show you in a short time, you could have testosterone, DHT, you could have androstenedione, you could have certain estrogens unopposed, you could have low progesterone, and all these factors could contribute to PCOS development. So it's never one thing. That's why there can never be one form of treatment for it. But if you can get the perspective through everybody's concept of PCOS, you're going to know that, once again, it's multifactorial, so therefore you need a practitioner that's going to dive into those factors. But you know what's really funny? If you notice, and let's come back to here, if you notice long-term complications such as type 2 diabetes and heart disease, you say, well, doc, how can we go from there? Can hormonal problems cause type 2 diabetes? Well, once again, I would flip around and say, I'd say the diabetic aspect may contribute more to hormonal problems than vice versa, but heart disease, there's an inflammatory factor that contributes to heart disease, and that's why the heart gets destroyed. It's not really a hormonal component that way, so therefore, guess what? Maybe some inflammation is creating some hormone balances that lead to PCOS. See, it's all about perspective. It's all about looking at this. But let's go on. Let's see what Johns Hopkins now has to say about PCOS. Once again, let's take two of the major medical establishments out there, and we're going to tear this one apart a little bit more because I want you guys to see this. So here we go. PCOS is a condition in which the ovaries produce an abnormal amount of androgens, male sex hormones, that are usually present in women in small amounts. Now hold it right there. Hold it right there. What I'm going to do is this, I'm going to jump forward to a slide, and then what I'm going to do is this, I'm going to talk about it. It's why something I found out when I was in college, which made me so fascinated with the female body. Ladies, I can tell you, guys' bodies are pretty simple. You know, how hormones are produced that way. Women, you are a network of complex tissues that have to synergistically work at such a productive and timely manner for you just to even have a cycle. It's actually quite fascinating if you really understand this. And so there's a couple things I want to point out to you that can actually help you understand a little bit of PCOS, but also other female conditions, and why when I look and go, and Travis, do me a favor, pop up that slide again, that last one, John Hopkins. And I'm going to show you why I cannot agree with this. So let's read it again, all right? PCOS is a condition in which the ovaries produce an abnormal amounts of androgens, male sex hormones, that are usually present in women in small amounts. All right, so what I want to do is this, is I kind of want to go and I want to show you something and why it's hard for me when I hear docs say, well, you produce too much hormone. And this, I'm going, with the exception of like a pituitary tumor or an exception of rare cases, do you ever get a massive overproduction? It doesn't, to me, it doesn't make any sense if you look at how hormones are produced and what they have to do. I'm going to show you right now, once you go back to my tub analogy. What you're going to more find out is your body, once again, is programmed to produce, is genetically programmed to produce a certain amount of hormone. That's why if you look at labs, there's ranges. And then it's not really an excessive production. It's a lack of conversion. So let me show you from this slide right here. Okay? Now, what it is, it's actually, this is a presentation I do when I actually explain a woman's cycle from start to finish. So I'm going to just give you a little bit of overview down below. As you can see, I'm breaking up the phases of a woman's cycle from follicular to luteal. You can see I'm just taking roughly 28 days of the cycle that way. FSH, LH, GH are just all of brain hormones because that's where it all starts. But I want you to look at top, forget everything on there, and you see that little circle, and you see it says primordial follicle, primary, and you see all these little red circles in there. That's an ovary. And what you can see inside the ovary is a follicle. Now, Travis, come back to me on this. I want you to know something that's really fascinating. This fascinated me when I finally listened to this because I was trying to figure out how hormones are produced in a woman's body. And as you can see, that ovary is actually one of the major production sites for hormones, all hormones, androgens, everything, all the sex characteristic hormones, everything. And I was like, okay, how does it do it? Well, if you notice, the ovaries, as you can saw, it's full of primordial. Think this way, ancestral, pre-follicles that now have to develop. They have to grow. Well, that's kind of cool. Well, how does the follicle grow? It's stimulated from the brain. Do you get it? Follicle stimulating hormone, FSH. Cool. So it first starts with the brain. Ladies, that's why if FSH is not regulated properly by your brain, there can be some irregular menstruation. That means can mental stress, ladies, throw off your menstruation? Yes, because it starts there. That's why, ladies, you've been going, if all of a sudden you're doc, I had such a horrible, stressful month, my cycle was delayed or my cycle was early. Well, of course, there's a stress component. So I got a simple question for all you guys sitting here. Could mental stress lead to some hormonal issues? Yeah, see, it's not like it's rocket science. So right there, what are you gonna do? Give every woman antidepressants if you're gonna try to regulate all hormones so they're not stressed out? See, that's the thing. There's multiple factors that do this. It all has to be, once again, interpreted from a perspective to let women know that these things can contribute. Okay, but here's what happens. Let's say FSH is working perfectly. Here's the cool part. The follicle actually is stimulated and starts to grow. It starts to grow. But you know what really fascinated me? I want you to think about this. I was in Kyle's dad's here. Kyle's dad, remind your name again? Gary, okay? So I want you to think about this. Gary's more my age and stuff like that. It's kind of cool. And I learned this when I was in college. I want you to think about something that just totally fascinated me. Think about this, that I have 4 daughters. And they have ovaries, even though 2 of them are cyclic, 2 of them are not. But let's say that when my daughters were born, they already had their follicles inside their ovary, okay? So let's take Kyle's mother. When she was a baby, I want you to think about this. Part of Kyle was already in her. Come on, that's fascinating. That means, guys, Kyle, how old are you now? 29? 29. Yeah, 29. So Kyle's like, I'm 29 years old. Not really. Think about this. When Kyle's mom was born, part of Kyle was on the earth. What year was your mom born, roughly? 1961. Yeah. So Kyle may be 29 right now. But guess what happens? There was a part of him that was on this earth in 1961. Sorry, that's fascinating. Think about that. Now, not all of them. Dad had to contribute. See what I'm saying? But I want you to think about that. That totally fascinated me because I'm like going, oh my goodness. That means the development of our kids and everything like that. That means my grandkids. When Flissy, when Clista, when Trinity, when Faith was born, my grandkids, there was a part of them already there. I'm sorry, that fascinates me. I think that's cool. And I'm like going, wow. And a young lady's body, before it even develops, has to grow and maintain and keep those things there. And that's why I tell people is this. People say, Doc, you know something? I'm going to start doing healthy things because I want to get pregnant. You think I'm joking? That happens all the time. I'm like, you should have been doing it since you were born. Because you've had those ovaries and part of your children since they were born. See, so that fascination of the ovary and how it works led for me to understand a little bit more about that way. Because now what happens is this. Guess what? And let's go back to that chart there, Travis. So when you look at this, you can see that follicle. So let's go down to that middle chart. See the tan and that red? See, right over it gets some follicle stimulating hormone, and you can see that little red thing gets a little bigger. It says growth of the follicle. Well, when it does that, see what it does? It now produces more and more estrogen. And I'm going to go to the next slide. That's why if you look from day 0, first day of menstruation, day 1, up to day 14, look at that follicle keeps on getting bigger and bigger and bigger. It starts releasing more and more and more and more estrogen. See, so it's programmed to grow at a certain level. And so therefore, you're not producing too much hormone. Your growth of your follicle depends on that. So if you come back here, it grows and grows and grows until the point the follicle matures, and you see that little pop of that white thing. What is that? There's that egg release. See, that's when women come to me and say, Doc, I don't ovulate. Then guess what happens? I'm going, if you're not ovulating, that means that primordial follicle is not growing enough to release. Therefore, there is no ovulation. Therefore, once again, there's a lot of times you don't have menstruation. You end up with oligomenorrhea or amenorrhea. See, where you decrease the amount of cycles you have. Or you have multiple ones, or they're less than 9, there's 6, there's 12, there's, per year and stuff like that. They're changing on a regular basis. See, that's the great thing about it. So that's why when all of a sudden, and we're going to go back here, Travis, I want to come back here. When they say, once again, they produce in abnormal amounts and it's usually excessive amounts. That doesn't make any sense because when there's testosterone released from there, when there's progesterone released from there, what those factors do is this, it's produced. And if anything, it's not an excessive amount, it'd be more of a deficient process. Well then what leads to the excessiveness? It's really simple. It's a lack of conversions. It's a lack of actually taking those hormones when they're produced, and let's say that's hormone A, and we got to convert it over to D. It's got to go from A to B, B to C, C to D. And if all of a sudden you get to B, and all of a sudden there's no enzymes and things like that, nutrients to convert from B to C, B starts to build up in the body. Your body didn't excessively produce B, it didn't convert. And therefore, guess what happens? There wasn't an overproduction. One of the drains was plugged, and so there's just more water building up. And so when I look at this and go, the body's, see what they always think is the body made a mistake. What if I told you the mistake wasn't your body, the mistake wasn't you giving it what it needed, or doing what it needed, or actually leading to the stressors that led to it that way. But see, what does that do? When I talk to you about it that way, it gives you control. It gives you control. If Kyle can blame his dad for high cholesterol or heart disease, Kyle has no control. You understand? See, that's what they want. So then you bow down to medicine and go, give me your life-altering drugs to save from my dad's bad genes. Do you understand? Your genes program you for this. Normal function, not disease. I don't understand when people say, oh, Doc, I'm genetically programmed for breast cancer. That's not true. You saying the gene, you have to trigger the gene. You're saying you have to make it not work. And you can stimulate it to work. You're saying if you have estrogen levels that are extremely high, that gene's going to respond. And if you have the BRCA gene on top of it, it's a bad day. Do you understand? See, that's the part that people do not realize. So let's go back to this one here, Kyle. Here we go. The main polycystic ovary syndrome describes the numerous small cysts that form in the ovaries. However, some women with this disorder do not have cysts, while some women without the disorder do develop cysts. Ovulation occurs when the mature egg, there you go, there's the key, mature egg, it's got to mature, is released from the ovary. This happens so it can be fertilized by a male sperm. If the egg is not fertilized, it is sent out totally during the period. In some cases, a woman does not make enough of the hormones needed to ovulate. Travis, let's take a look at this. There you go. Here it is. Now, if you remember, so think about this. You see that little follicle grow? If there's not enough stimulation from the brain with the follicle stimulating hormone, it doesn't grow. If there is something that is actually inhibiting your follicle to mature because maybe there's damage or inflammation to the ovary. Travis, come back to me on this one, because I have to send a subliminal message to you guys. Let me take a little pause here because I got to think about wordiness so we don't get kicked off. Yeah. There was a study that we had to get from China about a company that was giving a form of treatment to where their treatment, when circulated in the body, even though they told you it stayed in the arm, circulated and accumulated in the ovaries at a high amount, which can lead to inflammation and damage to the follicles. That means with that kind of ovarian or follicular damage, could that impede your ability to reproduce and maybe reduce population growth in the world? I wonder why they hid all that study or wanted to bring it out over 55 years. Just a hypothetical thing if something like that ever happened. Let's go on. Here we go. In some cases, a woman does not make enough of the hormone needed to ovulate. When ovulation doesn't happen, the ovaries can develop many small cysts. The cysts make hormones called androgens. Women with PCOS often have high levels of androgens. This can cause more predominant problems with a woman's menstrual cycle, and it can cause many of the symptoms of PCOS. Treatments of PCOS for PCOS is often done with medications. This cannot cure PCOS, but it can help reduce symptoms and prevent some health problems. They even tell you. I mean, man, let's say this. Let's say all of a sudden you go to doc and say, well, this ain't going to help you, but it's just going to relieve some symptoms and actually it's going to prevent some things coming forward. Well, prevent is a key word on there. But the idea is this. That's the aspect of what they have for women. I'm sorry, if you're diagnosed with PCOS and that is your outcome, I would be searching for a different perspective on that. You know what I'm saying? And when they tell you that there isn't, once again, that's actually a complete lie. I don't mind if they tell you that managing medications, if you don't do it, like they told Janet, that there could be some problems that come up if you don't do it. Sure, from their perspective, that is true. I have no problem with them telling that. But the idea that there isn't other options is actually lying to people. Now, that being said, let's go back to this graph here. I want to show you once again, there's that key factor that happens when you look at the development of the follicle. It's incredible. Now, if we take a look at the next one, you see the hormone levels. You can see the fact that once again, the egg is released and then progesterone takes over. So it kind of opposes. It opposes and estrogens start to come down. Now, once again, if they don't come down because there is not conversion, those levels can stay up and there can be a whole host of problems. That's why when you look at PCOS itself, it can be multifactorial things that cause it. And if you look at, there are clinical factors that do come up with PCOS. Now, let's take a look a little bit more in detail here. So in PCOS, you got to have multiple criteria, and this is very common that you see today. You're going to have some irregular periods over to the left there. Now, if you start to have excessive hormones, ladies, you can see acne. So I get this question all the time. So Travis, come back to me on this one. I get this question all the time. Doc, I have very bad acne. Well, sure. There's two factors that really contribute to it. And number one, no doubt, would be some hormonal issue. That's why when young ladies, they get their menstrual cycle at, teenage years that way, and all of a sudden their skin changes. See, and people say, well, it's just their cycle. That's not true. Not because they have a cycle. It's because, once again, they're not converting their hormones into proper levels, and therefore it's leading to acne. It's leading to that. Now, there's another factor that can contribute to it, is actually a huge vitamin A deficiency. That's why if you ever notice, one of the major treatments they have for acne is a cream. And if you look at, it's a high dose, very toxic synthetic vitamin A. Now, I want you to think about this, ladies. If you put it on your skin, because women come here all the time, and they say, Doc, I tried to use it, it didn't work. Doc, I used it and it worked. Okay, let's, by elimination, before even doing some labs. If a woman comes to me and says, Doc, I actually took it, the skin cream, and I put it on, and the acne changed. Well, if you took synthetic vitamin A, just a simple concept, why don't you eat vitamin A so you don't need to take a synthetic form? See, because I love it. I love this. Okay, watch this. I actually read a stat yesterday that will blow your mind away. Okay, maybe it's because of Johnny Depp and all the trial and stuff like that, but I had to watch the Pirates of the Caribbean movies all over again. It did. It's just kind of funny. And I heard that there's going to be a new one coming out, which is even cooler, because I think Johnny Depp was absolutely incredible in the Pirates of the Caribbean. But the reason why I bring that up is this. Go back to the years of crossing the oceans with ships. A very common condition that sailors suffered with was with what? Scurvy. That's kind of funny. It's really true. Scurvy was. Okay? And what they found out was this. They found out that, guess what? That when they took a form of vitamin C, it was actually in the form of lime, if you go back to history of nutrition, oh my goodness, scurvy cleared up automatically. I love how we think vitamins are actually not strong and potent. If you have scurvy and take vitamin C, it really clears up in a couple days. Do you follow me in that? It literally clears up in a couple days because you're deficient in vitamin C. Okay? I don't know if you guys know the history of vitamins. Does anybody know the first vitamin ever discovered was? Vitamin A. Does anyone guess what the second vitamin ever discovered was? Vitamin B. Anyone guess the third vitamin ever discovered? You're saying? That's not a joke. That's actually how they came up with it. But I want you to think about this. It's like if the sailors, when they took vitamin C, it cleared up. It really cleared up. See, I love how the fact that we actually downplay the role of what our body needs. So all of a sudden, a woman's taking synthetic vitamin A in her skin, it clears up. Well, then guess what? Start ingesting a decent form of vitamin A. And obviously, the greatest source of vitamin A is still organ meats. Always will be and always is. So therefore, that's why it's important. And we've talked about our glandulars a ton about having a great source of liver. All right? So now, that being said, as we're going through that, a person doesn't clear up. Doc, I took the skin cream and nothing happened. Well, just even by elimination processes, then what's going to happen is this. You're going to need what? You're going to need to get your hormones checked. And you're going to find out that these young ladies, and I've had some very, very intense acne, including cystic acne, that I've dealt with clinically for so many years. But think about this. Polycystic ovarian syndrome, cystic acne, kind of get the correlation there? You say, I'm cystine forming there. I know I put all these connections together because, once again, I'm teaching you the basics of hormones, the basics of anatomy, the basics of biochemistry, and it makes so much clinical sense. So therefore, I go, let's get Dutch tests, let's get some blood work done, and boom, start to see the things that are not working there and start to restore that and see their skin genetically go back to normal. Let me ask you a question, guys. Is your skin genetically programmed for acne or normal skin? I know it's a weird question, but I think like a carpenter doctor, not like the fire department doctor, not like the medical system. You're not genetically programmed for acne. Well, doc, my mom had bad acne. Well, great. Your mom actually created the same bad habits you had. You understand? I find it funny. Family history should be more of the fact is, what did your parents do? You understand? Not what their genes are. What did your parents do? Well, they ate like crap. Well, don't eat like crap because you're going to end up just like them. They smoke. Don't smoke. You're going to just like them. You understand? That's the aspect of family history when I'm looking at it that way. You know, so with that being said, kind of correlating things, and let's go back to our thing here. As you look, once again, alopecia, so common. Facial hair, so common today. So common today. Man, it's not a joke. Laser treatments for women's facial hair is becoming a business by itself. Do you understand the female cosmetic industry, once again, has done, I think they've done some great advancements that way, but what happens is there's women that are like, doc, I get dark hairs on my face and stuff like that. There's some hormonal issues. But another contributing feature of PCOS is just the cyst itself in the ovaries. Now, I kind of think this is a little backwards. Another feature of PCOS is overweight obesity. I'm gonna tell you right now, they'll talk about PCOS causes obesity. I'm like the other way around. I think the PCO and obesity is actually a causal factor to PCOS because of the blood sugar issues that happen that way. I think it's a big contributing factor that way. Now, once again, what's the big key? If you look at, here's a woman, no joke, PCOS. If you look, and if you look at the top, you can see the DHA, you can see the testosterone, the red gauge, way high. Dominant in androgens, dominant testosterone, dominant in DHT. I also have a blood work, but I just popped this up for you guys to understand it. Labs are key to this. Look at her estrogens. They're very low. This was a cyclic woman. This was not a menopausal woman. But if you look at, once again, the factors that happen, she is not aromatizing her testosterone down. She's not converting it down. And also what happened is, on her blood work, I ran her FSH on day 2 of her menstrual period, because that's when you roughly run it. Timing is key, and her FSH was really low. So once again, she was actually having some major neurological issues that were leading to the follicle not being stimulated, so therefore there was no development. So she was major dominant in her testosterone, wasn't producing estrogens. This woman was a mess. She started to get facial hair. Now, I will tell you, this is kind of funny, but it's it's a true story that way. Is thinking about women's testosterone levels. Happy husband. Characteristics of a woman and man, if their testosterone gets elevated, sex drive goes up. It really does. And I looked at the husband and said, dude, enjoy it now, because as she becomes healthy, her sex drive will go down. And he's like, Doc, no. I'm like, it's just what happens. I said, and like clockwork, it happened. Because once again, women are not supposed to have elevated levels of testosterone. And that's why it scares me. Now I want you to take, now here, we're gonna take a little pause for a second, because if you're offended by cultural things, I'm gonna ask you to please don't watch any further, because I'm gonna give you an opinion, but it's not an opinion, it's straight scientific fact, okay? So again, I'm warning you, if you are offended by cultural issues, which we're gonna talk about at the end, please stop listening. So I'm gonna take a little sip of my coffee and give you a chance to delay. I thank you guys for watching. If you are offended by cultural things, you don't want to have this discussion, but I'm gonna give you an opportunity to do it. So here we go. Now, if you were to look at the basic blood work, or even Dutch tests, or there are other urine metabolism tests you can do. I'm just in favor of Dutch because I think they're the best company out there. There's a range for women's testosterone. There's a range, okay? Now, I don't care what your political views are. I don't care what your stance is on transgenderism and stuff like that. I don't care what your stance is on anything. I'm gonna talk to you about, if I am looking at a female body that has female genitalia, that has lab work that's supposed to be between a range of 0 and 40, or supposed to have a range between 2 and 14 on the urine metabolism test, and you're a doctor, and you give them hormone replacement. I don't care if it's bioidentical from a pellet. I don't care if it's synthetic hormones by shots that way. And you raise their levels to male levels, which would be minimal of 300 on the blood work. And you put them into androgen dominance, you are the causal factor of why that biological woman will end up with some health condition. So when I saw the amount of surgeries and injections that they're doing to biological women, don't care what your stance is politically, and they're jacking this up, you are creating these females, even if they think they're guys, you are creating androgen dominance, which leads to mass amount of healthcare conditions, which if you go back, PCOS relationship to cancer later in life, sorry doctors, your license should be taken away, because you are going to contribute, you're the major contributing factor of why they're gonna get cancer someday. Number one, that's sad. You took an oath, first do no harm. And I actually recently had a young lady that thinks she's a boy, okay, taking shots, and her labs were disgustingly high. Do you understand? Does she act more like a male now? Absolutely. If I give every one of these males some synthetic estrogen, they will start to take on female characteristics. Heck, you don't even need that nowadays with most men, because they're sugaring themselves up. And what happens is this, they're eating sugar like crazy, they're getting man boobs like crazy, they're starting to become more female already. You understand? Like I told you, if you're offended by cultural things and want to have a discussion, I pre-warned you before you got on here. So I gave you an opportunity to leave. See, so I am so against all these things, trying to get females into male levels or male into female levels, because it's going to cause a lot of healthcare problems for those people in the future. That's why. Don't care what your political stance is. Not saying I'm gonna argue with a young lady that thinks she's a boy. That's not my argument with them. I don't care about that. You can think whatever you want. Heck, you think you're a pony, I don't care. I'll give you a carrot. You understand? I don't. I'm a freedom person. You can dress up as a cat and you can pee in the litter box. I'm cool with it. Do you understand? Now, if you force our schools, I'm gonna have a little problem with that. But you understand? I don't care what you do behind closed doors. You know what I'm saying? I just don't care. Yeah, I really don't. I'm all about freedom. You know what I'm saying? But it's very hard for me to look at a doctor in the eyes that's doing that to somebody and tell me he's an ethical man or woman. Can't handle that. Can't. Because you can't look at the most basic things of biochemistry, as I'm pointing to all the research, and think that's okay. It's not okay. You're creating harm for these people in the future. And all you have to do is labs. So all these people, all what I want to do is this. Any doctor that's giving hormone replacement therapy for any reason, heck, they can't even get it right when a woman thinks she's a woman or a man thinks he's a man. You think I'm joking? I've got thousands and thousands, let me say, not one, thousands and thousands of people that go in for hormone replacement therapy, even through integrative doctors, and take pellets. I had a woman the other day, literally brought me a lab, $250 for testosterone. You know, I'm like, oh my goodness. And people say, and then, no joke. And the only benefit that she could tell me was, she goes, Doc, I finally have a sex drive. I'm like, you're not supposed to have a sex drive like that. That's not normal. Do you understand? No matter how much you and your husband like it, it's not normal, because there's other things that are going to come from that. And if you look at all the research, one day it's going to be cancer. It's interesting, because when you have hormonal problems, they're trying to manipulate it so you don't have a cancer. But then there's people creating hormonal problems, and they're not going to tell you they're going to give you cancer. It's a perspective. It's frustrating. So, that being said, in general, people always say, Doc, in general, can you tell us some things to do during a show? Yes. Remember, I listen to your requests. So if you look here, here's one thing that I want you to talk about. Get your hormones tested. Reduce your sugars. Start Gymnema. It's a great thing to have if you go back to our past shows. Get sunlight and infrared sauna. Why? I told you I was going to talk about it. Melatonin. Melatonin is so key. I actually made several phone calls this morning outside, because you know why? I actually grabbed my phone, walked outside, sunny like crazy. Granted, Green Bay only gets so many months out of the year. I'm just sitting there. 64 degrees out. It's beautiful. I'm like, got shorts on, just trying to get some sun on my head, sun on my arms. Once again, I'll be sitting by the pool later today. Be kind of cool, just sitting there and soaking up some sunlight, which gives you high production of melatonin. If you haven't watched my show on sunlight and melatonin or infrared, once again, and when I was out there, believe it or not, I actually walked over by the grass, I took my flip-flops off, and I walked in the ground. Do you know what I'm saying? Because once again, the electrons you can get from the ground are incredible. Sunlight, melatonin production, fantastic for hormonal balance. Fantastic to start to regulate your hormones. Next things, if you look, liver glandular, there you go. Sasandra, fiber foods. There's great things that you can do on a regular basis. You can start right now. You don't need to have hormone testing done right away. I would encourage you, because it's the most important thing, but right now it's important to do that. So now, just a little insight on PCOS and some things that are out there today that are very important to know. But one thing that I got emails from, and once again, the reason why we're always adding to the show, and it is because it comes from your requests. And so it's really great having all these talented, amazing people that throw some things together. As you saw, our nice little segments we're going to continue to do on a regular basis. You guys get them from your requests, from your emails. So once again, subscribe to our newsletter, subscribe on our website. It costs you nothing. It's absolutely incredible, all the information you get. And you have, once again, you have a little bit of, how can I say, what's the word I'm looking for? You have some influence on what we do here. I literally read your emails. I had emails, they say, Doc, can you are very great at teaching labs. I understand it more than the doctors do when I go and talk to them that way. Thank you. Can you teach us sometimes on a little bit of products? I said, yes, I can. I really can. See, and let me set this before we go into our product knowledge. It's very difficult for me that want to teach on products, because here's why. So I'm gonna set the rules out before I go into our product knowledge segment. It was requested by you guys, but here's what happens this. I'm gonna teach you what the product is, but here's the bad part. Without labs and without proper things, you're gonna run around and buy it. Don't want you to do that, okay? Because I'm gonna teach you how great it is, and this one I'm gonna teach you, I take on a regular basis, but I'll tell you why I take it that way. I don't take everything that I teach you guys. Do you understand? I've never taken St. John's. I've never taken California Poppy. I can honestly tell you the two most clinically things that I've ever given out in 23 years of practice is LBZ and California Poppy. I've never taken California Poppy in my life. Yet I can teach on it, and it's absolutely amazing. It's based on the clinical outcomes we're trying to get with the people that are what they're suffering with. See, so as I teach you on product knowledge that way, just understand, I'm going to talk about it, trying to talk about what it does in the ingredients inside of it and what's the mechanism behind it, so you can understand a little bit. So we're going to consistently teach these things so you understand them. And I will do that on a regular basis because you guys have asked repeatedly. And I fought it until our team said, Doc, we've gotten thousands of emails. Can you just teach a little bit on the product knowledge so they can understand a little bit more? And I said, yes. So you guys have influence, even though I fought it. I remember when Brandon first took me for a ride. And he's like, he put up this video. It said, Uncle Patrick, we got to get it on media. My first response was, no. It was, no. 8 years later, look what happens. We're watched by millions of people all over the world. But I was like, no. And my team, Doc, you got to teach on the products. No, no, I don't want to. And the reason why I don't want to, and let me say this, I have a mental hang up because I'm so frustrated with the natural field actually talking about condition. And then here's the magic one supplement to take. That's against everything I believe. So I just said, I'm not going to teach on products. So I'm going to do something a little different starting now. I'm going to give you some product knowledge, not related to condition. I'm going to teach you on the product itself and what the mechanism behind it is. And then what happens is maybe when you run a lab, that you may understand why your Wellness Way practitioner gives it to you. And you'll have even a little bit more insight of why it was given to you. So let's move into our product knowledge. All right, the one thing I love about understanding products is this. Whenever you hear me talk about a product, think about the ingredients. Think about the constituents. One thing that a constituent is no different, think it equal to an ingredient. If you were making a cake, there are certain ingredients it needs in order to actually get the benefit of it that way. So when I look at a nutritional label, there's things that I want to accomplish by eating that thing. Well, guess what? Supplementation is no different. Supplementation is nothing more than taking something and it's more of its whole food or real form so it can be used, its constituents, like I talked about. We talked about liver before. We talked about why would I want to eat liver? Because I want a real source of vitamin A. Now people say, Doc, but wait, if I look on the back of a supplement, it'll say vitamin A on there. Well, not really, because what it says is it says vitamin A, and then it gives you some parentheses, and it says beta-carotene. Beta-carotene is not vitamin A. Beta-carotene is a provitamin, which means, once again, it has to be converted, there's that word again, in your liver and other organs to vitamin A. Well, guess what? A lot of people can't do that. They really can't. Just like when people actually look on the back of a label, it says vitamin C, and then it says in parentheses, ascorbic acid. That's not vitamin A or vitamin C. That's actually a fraction of vitamin C. I don't want to do that. That's why you're going to notice the things that we usually use here on 99% of the products that way are in its whole food glandular form or an herb that's soaked, once again, in its form to actually get its whole food constituents out of it that way. Well, one thing, especially over the last couple of years, I believe is so important, and also, once again, if you have any major immune issue, is this. One people want to know, we talked about the other day, is about, about our immune glandular. All right. Now, I'm going to show you if you look at the supplement facts over there. As you can see, once again, every glandular I have, there's a form of liver in there because I still, in my nutrition and education, I can honestly tell you that I still have never found any food better than liver. Just as the most complete food that you can ever. That's the superfood of the world right there. But then if you look, there's other immune organs that help you convert your tissues into other forms, like the spleen and the thymus. One of the reasons why, when I hand selected what goes in these things, now come back to me, Travis. Do you understand that every product that the Wellness Way has, I personally hand selected the ingredients? The potency, the quality, the sourcing, not a joke. It's that important to me. That's why this is actually a principle for our company. I call it the Dateline NBC principle. That means, do you ever watch the Dateline NBC where all of a sudden they'll go to somewhere and try to defraud them and things like that? I'm like, dude, I invite people to come here. Grab your cameras, come here, go back to our warehouse, look at our manufacturing, look at our quality, look at our labs, look at everything we do with a microscope. Look at it. I'd welcome you in. Come on, let's take a look. I'm proud of our sourcing. I'm proud of our quality. I'm proud of where we get our stuff. I'm proud of the manufacturers that we work directly. We do not private label. We manufacture them that way. That's how intense I am about them. So when you look at our immune glandular here, if you look, once again, there's a thymus gland in there. It's a gland. There's spleen in there. Yes, you are eating an organ. There's liver in there. Now, if you look, as I point to my chest here, okay, what happens is this. Your thymus gland is right there. Now, why that gland is so important, and because here's what happens. If you do not have the right constituents, aka the ingredients, in it, what's going to happen, this organ over time does degenerate. If you don't have the right ingredients in eating stuff on a regular basis, it degenerates faster. It does. It's an organ that degenerates really fast if it's not maintained well. So that's why I love the thymus gland, because here's what the thymus gland does. And this is, once again, great research. The role of the thymus in the immune system. Here we go. Let's read it out loud for you that way. The thymus is primarily a lymphoid organ essential for the development of the T lymphocytes, which orchestrate adaptive immune responses. Come back here. I want you to think about this. Over the last 2 years, how important do you think that is? Our T cells killing off major infections that could kill us. All right, let's go back. Let's keep on reading. T cell development in the thymus is sparsely regulated. Key checkpoints in T cell maturation and selection occur in cortical and medullary regions to eliminate self-reactive T cells, establish central tolerance, and export naive T cells to the periphery of the potential to recognize diverse pathogens. Thymic output is also temporarily regulated due to the age-related involution of the thymus accumulated by loss of epithelial cells. There you go. It's degenerating. In this review, we discussed the functional and age-related control of the thymus function in humans. See, I pulled up the research article because here's what happens. This is it will die off, and it can die off quickly. And actually, your immune cells and your T cells can be proportionally determined by the size of your thymus. See, that's why I've taken this since I was young. I actually started organ meats and actually started to look at glandulars when I was in college. That's why people say, Doc, you're kind of obsessed with organ meats and stuff. Yes, I'm obsessed with glands. And once again, if I call the glandular, it means I put it in pill form. Otherwise, you can eat an organ of everything. You can. I mean, I still remember, I actually, you know what organ I actually like eating? I love making chicken soup and throwing the heart and gizzards of chickens and then pulling off and soaking for a while. Darn, that's good. Do you say them? Now, Durham, if you don't want to eat them, you got to encapsulate them, put the glandular in a pill form, and you got it that way. It's important to do it, okay? You understand there's multiple forms of glandulars. I will tell you this, in every glandular product that I've produced, there is liver in there, because I still think the liver is the superfood of the world, because it's quite nutritious. The amount of nutrition you get from just 3 ounces of liver are incredible. The great thing about liver, guess what happens? It's dirt cheap because no one wants to eat it. So there, if you don't eat it, you got to do it in glandular form. That's what the term supplement comes from. So for our product knowledge, just understand our immune glandular is there not only to supply certain nutrients, because yes, does the thymus have certain vitamins in? Yes. Does it have certain constituents to help rebuild it? Yes. So does the spleen, so does the liver. So when you eat the liver, you can have great sources of vitamin A and other vitamins, but it also gives your body the ability to regenerate that organ. Regeneration, guys, think of it this way. Your skin, you understand, by tonight, when you started this talk at 8 o'clock, these skin cells are probably gone tonight, and you need some new ones. You need the material to do that. That's why regeneration. We have to understand our body does not stay the same. It's constantly regenerating, regrowing. And how fast those organs degenerate is if you lack the ability to be able to regenerate those. And that's why glandular therapy, that's why actually eating organ meats is so vital to long and healthy life. So, plus, once again, talk about scurvy, talk about vitamin C, an adrenal gland, high vitamin C. It's amazing because you need high vitamin C when you're under stress. Imagine that, the adrenal glands have high doses of vitamin C. All right, so product knowledge, just understand the basis of it and what it's used for. It's so important. But what I want to do, I always have some final thoughts. So I want to talk about my last 10%. All right, last 10%. I have two things to talk about. Number one, I want to thank you guys. I want to thank you guys for this. If you look at my Instagram now, once again, this was taken a couple days ago, but we broke 100,000 followers on Instagram. So I can't thank you guys enough for participating in the growth of that way. We literally just kicked in our Instagram and our videos about 3 weeks ago, and we went from basically about 10,000 people following us to 100,000 within a couple weeks, because we now started to put out our videos and our clips and our reels, and we started to take our Instagram very seriously from what we did. So I can't thank our team enough. I can't thank Miranda enough, where she actually sits there and shoots videos with me on a regular basis. Thank you for all your hard work. She puts in work sometimes 7 days a week to get all these reels out. Can't thank our media team, our marketing manager, all the producers and stuff like that to do it. I can't thank enough. And then Miranda and Joshua came in yesterday and they brought something for us, and I almost shed a tear because, as you guys know, Branda started the media team, but we have 100,000 Happy Bellies cake. Yes, I can't thank you guys enough on there. But we're just honored. Like I said, I cannot tell you when somebody, I didn't do that on purpose, guys, show me. We're gonna dive into that good egg-free, gluten-free cake. Thank you, Rebecca. Rebecca, who owns Happy Bellies, is a very close friend of mine. She's amazing. It's a bakery that's close to here. But anyways, I've always said this is, I'm very honored every day that I get to work with incredible people. You guys get to see me in front of camera, but I'll tell you right now, there's literally 100 more people behind the scenes than there is in front of it and stuff like that. So this is actually a celebration for all of us, from my CEO down to, no joke, down to the woman who cleans our office. It takes a tribe. It takes a mass amount of people to do what we do. And I can't do it without any of you guys. You guys are so important to me. That 100,000 is just a reflection of your hard work. And I get up every morning, no joke, and try to perform my best for everybody. So now we bring the Wellness Ways a different perspective, everything to the world. But also I understand getting up every day that guess what happens? I can't live without them. And believe it or not, they can't live without me. They're stuck with me as much as I'm stuck with them. And that's a good thing, you know what I'm saying? But that being said, I know as we get a wider audience, there's things I'm going to say that are going to be very inspirational to people, but I can say something that is meaningful, connecting. As you guys know, I love analogies and I try to create some things. I like humor. I'm kind of bold. I'm kind of direct. And I know this, and I mean this very sincerely. I get up every morning and I wish everybody would understand my message very clearly. Is it always going to happen where people will take my words and sometimes be offended by them? Absolutely. That's why I had to pre-warn people, say, listen, I get very frustrated knowing the fact that when a doctor injects hormones into somebody, it can lead to conditions. I'm very frustrated. Now, they're wrong. There's doctors out there that will call me names just because I said that. There's people out there that might be your dad, that might be your uncle, that might be your dad, that does this stuff, and you may defend them and not like my words. I get it. I totally understand that. It's okay to have a different perspective. It really is, and stuff. I think I'm a little bit frustrated over the last couple of years because if somebody has a different perspective, they try to censor people. That's why my biggest page got shut down, and that got viewed by millions and millions of people across the world. But see, what happens this, I won't silence you. I actually, it's really funny, if you ever comment on my page and it's even negative, I don't delete it. I actually believe that everybody should have a voice, just like I should have a voice. And I'm actually, as long as, there's people alive, I will continue to have a voice. Because you know why? Because if there's no media, people don't realize this. Brandon came to me 8 years ago. This has been almost 30 years for me. 23 years in clinical practice, college and everything like that. So I started these ideas back then when I was actually a teenager. But I want you to think about this. Brandon came to me 8 years ago. The company was huge already before 8 years ago. You guys just learn about more because media actually brings a lot more attention that way. But I already had a big company 8 years ago. It's just that media allowed me to do it because you know what my media was before that? It was the original Facebook. One face talking to another. Because a good idea, once again, once it's in your head, it's hard to get rid of. And then the clinical results that follow actually will do that. So I get this. I understand that the things I say sometimes, and I will tell you by a shadow of a doubt, if you know me, I would never want to, honestly, no joke, I would never want anybody to be upset with my words and stuff like that. But I know it's going to happen. I really do. So that's why I just show a couple of them. So take a look. So, and it's cool. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, Miranda put out the video. I literally had a question. As you know, I love analogies. So once again, just very simply, I try to make funny analogies that just try to appeal to people. Because once again, Travis, come back to me for a second. I want you to understand this. I want you to understand that 99% of the emails I get per day are heart-wrenching, sick, mainly women, also guys, but probably 95% are women, sick people suffering, frustrated, angry. You understand? Because they feel that their doctors lied to them. That doctor that took care of Janet didn't lie to her. She just didn't connect the dots for her, so she was upset. Actually, just so that you know, the doc that was taking care of her actually now has more validity by me talking to her than the doctor talking to Janet. Because I said from her perspective, she didn't lie to you. She was just giving you her ideas. And I kind of agree with her ideas if you stay on her path. If you go in a different direction, our path, that's not your outcome. But from her perspective, it's cool. So she's like, I get it. I understand her. And now she can see it from multiple perspectives, and then she chooses the path that she goes. So therefore, when I open my email every morning, I'm bombarded with hopelessness. I'm bombarded with pain and fear and suffering. So sometimes I gotta make people laugh. Because sometimes just a little bit of a giggle will help you get through a very bad, suffering, depressed, sick day. And ladies, I get you so sick and so depressed, my heart breaks for you. So when I speak and I try to do things, I try to create some analogies that just make a little bit of fun. Just have a little bit of fun. Because you know why? In all the suffering out there today, we've seen it the last 2 years. Sometimes you just need to smile. So I got asked a question because this person was at my hormone seminar, and I love analogies. And yes, I get it. You can even see from the comment on the Instagram before. As I've, once again, I like analogy, so I called the vagina the man cave, okay? And see how the guys laugh right away. You saying? No, that's cool. Well, the reason why I had to use an analogy like that is quite simple. I'm not joking. I just met Kyle's dad. And if I would sit there and say, vagina, 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 do you understand, ladies? As a guy, we kind of tune it out. We don't like to talk about female stuff. They don't. You know how I know that? I would sit with women and men. I'm sitting and talking about vaginas and discharges of that, and the husband who's married to her and actually has been there before, guess what happens? Is all grossed out and he doesn't want to talk about it. And I'm like, well, I got to create an analogy. So and I said it here, and even the people who heard me say it 10 times, they giggle. And then what it did, it made them giggle a little bit. It made the husband and wife talk. And then he understood her, and she understood him. And it made them be able to talk about something she was suffering with. It made their life and their marriage and stuff better. You see, so somebody came to my talk and asked me, the person was dealing with some vaginal dryness. But they asked a different question, and Miranda just read it and put it in a video. And once again, and I respect this. I don't care what your sexual preference is. And I know some women that actually aren't in the men, they're in the women. They're like, you're saying that woman, that it's a man's thing. I'm like, okay, guys, listen. Didn't mean to offend you, but I'm okay if it does. Remember, I mean this sincerely. Making a comment on my Instagram, Facebook, or anything like that, like you're disgusted with my talk, I mean this very nicely. It's not going to change. Because you don't sit in my world. You don't sit across from a woman crying every day because she's so sick. You don't sit across trying to explain something to a man who doesn't understand and have to create a little bit of analogies and a little bit of fun because they're sick and suffering, and the husband can't have sex with the wife because vaginal dryness is so painful and things like that. So my analogies and everything I do is just trying to bring a little bit of humor, a little bit of fun to a very sick and suffering world, the world that I have to live with every day of my life. Do I enjoy it? Absolutely, because I try to turn that into hope very quickly. And sometimes just a little humor gives just a little bit of hope. So it was interesting because as you saw some of those comments there, and they're like, I can't believe that, what if you had some daughters and we have this? Well, my daughter Faith saw that and was very frustrated. So I'm going to read you what my daughter posted below to the people that said, my comments are disgusting to women, disgusting as a father, disgusting as a husband, disgusting as an individual. Well, here's my oldest daughter, who's almost she'll be 19 in a week and a half, who I've used these analogies, taught my girls, talked to things about that. And here we go. Hi, as the oldest daughter going to school to be a doctor and follow in his footsteps, I think these analogies are hilarious and genius. If you know my dad, you know he loves to use humor to connect with people. I've watched him use these analogies to teach men and women how to reconnect and saved hundreds of marriages and helped thousands of women with many different health problems. So I'm grateful that my dad has taught my sisters and I all these analogies. If you do personally know me, I would tell you, I have no problem saying what I say on camera to my 18-year-old daughter or my 15-year-old daughter or my 12-year-old daughter. None. I'm the one that does a wonderful job of actually trying to teach all ladies about this stuff. Once again, if you understood my heart when it comes to the female body and how much I'm fascinated by it and how I want women's bodies to not suffer and then not suffer physically and mentally, you know, you wouldn't actually freak out from a simple analogy that actually, believe it or not, has been seen by hundreds of thousands of people, which is in a book that has become an international bestseller that really brought joy and help to a lot of people all across the world. So as we continue to, with our amazing team behind closed doors, grow our media to more millions of people, understand that it's okay if you don't agree with what I say or how I do it. Then guess what happens? I encourage you to actually produce your own show, come up with your own analogies, and I'll probably watch it and enjoy it just as I hope you watch and enjoy everything I do here, regardless if I agree or disagree with what you say out there. So, even when it comes to media, it's a little bit of a different perspective. I believe everybody should have a voice, because you know why? Because sometimes the loudest voices out there are ones leading to most of the destruction, death, and disease. So, that being said, guys, hope you guys have a wonderful, happy, humorous, laughing, fun 4th of July weekend. I appreciate all you guys watching. Can't thank the team and then all you guys for hitting something like 100,000 followers. I am honored and I thank God every day for all you guys in my life. And I appreciate you guys. You guys have a happy and safe holiday. My name is Dr. Patrick Flynn, and thank you so much for watching The Different Perspective. I'll see you next week. Hey, thank you for watching. Make sure to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss a single video or live stream. Also, share this video with a friend. Once again, thank you for watching.